Hey, what's going on? Back here again with another episode of Craving Some Raven. Kind of pissed off because I've recorded a full episode and I had paused it and accidentally backed out of my voice record app and it didn't record like the last 15 minutes of it or last 10 minutes of it. So, damn it, I'm just gonna talk about Nick Boyle again. You know, uh, I really like this signing. At first I saw the cap number, 18 million for 3 years, and I was like, what? And then saw later that it was 10 guaranteed, so it's only like 3 mil a year, and that could even be different. The cap hit could be like 1 million this year, you know, 4 million next year, and then math, 5 million the next year. But they could split it up differently. I really like Nick Boyle, and I thought it was great that they brought him back. Thinking about like both tight ends, him and Max Williams becoming free agents this year. It's kind of the problem with drafting two players at the same position who end up as starters. You're gonna have to choose either between one or the other, or sign them both at way too much. But I thought both of them could come back at like 4 million a year to really shore up the tight end position. But seeing the numbers, it's like, oh yeah, they kind of do have to pay him more than that. That was kind of wishful thinking on my part, but really just excellent job by Eric Decosta. He's gone out and done what he said he's gonna do: sign the young players, bring back the young talent. The whole like free agency stuff with the Ravens, it's all been, what are you gonna do with C.J. Mosley? What are you gonna do with Terrell Suggs? What about Zadarius Smith? And no one's talking about these other guys, like Tavon Young and Nick Boyle, and both of them, really underrated players on the team. Maybe not so much for Ravens fans, but league wide, no one's really talking about these guys. Apparently Nick Boyle did have interest from other teams, but like a good dude, he's like, nah, man, I want to play with the Ravens. That's what's up. That's what I like. And I just think his style, like with the offense, he didn't catch a lot of passes. He still hasn't even scored a touchdown, but he's instrumental in what the Ravens are trying to do. They do a lot of three tight end sets, and he is like one of the lead blockers all the time. Just thinking of like a play that comes to mind is that touchdown that Lamar had against Atlanta. Like we ran out the outside, and Nick Boyle was a lead blocker, and man, he just bent this dude in half, and one of the other pursuing defenders like tripped over the guy that he demolished, and got Lamar into the end zone, or like sprung him towards the end zone. At least took two dudes out of the way who would have tried to tackle him, you know. And I just really like his fit in the Greg Roman style offense. They use a lot of pulling tight ends, pulling guards, pulling tackles. They like to just run all these linemen to one side, so that way it ends up being like 7-on-5 on that side of the ball when we're running. I think that's why his teams are always super successful in the run game, because he's just got a really good blocking scheme, and I think it's been proven that it's successful. And I think he is just one of the main focal points. And maybe Greg Roman was one of the guys. He's like, hey, we need to bring this guy back. You can't let him walk. But I think more of it was Eric Decosta. I think Nick Boyle and Tavon Young, these two guys, the reason they signed them first, not just because of their talent, but I think these guys were, excuse me, I think these guys were Eric Decosta's guys in the draft. We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure who wanted who, like in the draft room. I really wish, like after the draft, they would kind of release that stuff, but it's kind of give away their philosophies on different things. But it'd be good to see, like, during that draft, when Nick Boyle was still sitting there, Eric Decosta was the guy, like, hey, to use a Mike Mayock term, he was standing on the table for him. He was like, oh, this guy is good. We need to get him. I think Tavon Young and him, and Nick Boyle are guys that Eric Decosta was really high on in the draft, and we subsequently drafted. You know, uh, and that's why he's quick to sign them. Really quick to sign them. Other than C.J. Mosley and Terrell Suggs and Zadarius Smith, and and Eric DeCosta, he's been true to his word. What he said, like coming into this offseason and being announced as the GM, he's like, hey, we need to get smarter with the cap, and we need to keep our young talent. And I think so far he's done that, because the Ravens really do need to be smarter with the cap. They just haven't done that. They used to always have 3 compensatory picks. Bring in these, or draft these guys in the 4th, 5th round. They end up starting, and then get bigger paydays and go to another team. And we then get a 3rd round or 4th round pick, compensatory pick, to replace them the next year. So we just have this pipeline of, turning these 6th round players into 4th round picks, 5 years down the line. And I think that's why we were so successful for so long. And I don't think it's a coincidence that once we kind of stopped doing that, started signing free agents and getting away from that compensatory pick formula, that we stopped having success, being in the playoffs perennially sounds weird, but being in the playoffs each and every year, because once these guys leave, all of a sudden we have these holes that we can't fill because we haven't drafted enough players. We need to just take swings at the bat. So I'm hoping, maybe it's going to be a 1-year period where maybe our team isn't up to snuff. And I think our offense is going to be better. So maybe we will still be in the playoffs. But I think it's just going to set you up for the long-term kind of success of bringing in players, getting a bunch of picks, and then turning those guys when they leave into more picks without having to trade. Just getting basically free picks just by letting someone walk. It's always terrible to let someone walk, but you do, the way the league is set up, you do gain something from letting your good players walk. And it's kind of fucked up, but I think the Ravens need to get back into that. And I just really like the way Eric Decosta has been handling the offseason so far. He's stuck true to his word. And with this Nick Boyle thing, it was we're having they announced that they were having a press conference. It's well, is this for C.J. Mosley? Because they didn't say who. And then it turned out to be Nick Boyle. And I couldn't have been happier. I mean, and I'm not jumping up and down, but I think this is a smart move. You need to keep your young, talented guys. He's underrated. He was one of the main blockers. And, I don't know what this means for Max Williams. Is he going to... Are they going to re-sign him? I think he definitely hits free agency. Maybe someone will give him a lot of money, but I can't see his market being too huge. So hopefully we're able to keep him too, because I wouldn't like the Ravens to use a draft pick on a tight end. I think their draft picks would be more wisely used on other positions. But I originally thought, seeing as I'm not a GM, I thought they could keep both tight ends for what Nick Boyle himself is getting paid. But you got to be fair to your players. You got to make them happy. And I think, I think it'd be nice to have Max Williams back because they need 4 tight ends. Who knows who's going to get injured? But even if no one gets injured, they need 4 guys in that position group because they use them so much. They use 3 tight end sets all the time, and they use a different combination. Maybe if Max Williams goes, maybe they'll use Pat Ricard more. Maybe he's out of the doghouse. After those racist or homophobic tweets came out last year, that they kind of put him in the doghouse, and he didn't really play the rest of the year. But I really liked what he did earlier in the year and then the year before. And I really liked what Pat Ricard kind of brought to the table. He is kind of another one of those tight end out of the backfield types, but he's designated as a fullback. A blocker who can also catch. Be a surprise guy out of the backfield that there's the defenders are somehow going to have to try to cover, and scheme up something to where it's going to be impossible. No one can cover him. That no one's eyeing this guy up. But really, really like to sign Nick Boyle. He seems like a real genuine dude. During his press conference or any of the interviews he's ever had, he's been pretty candid. They're all coached up on like what to say, but sometimes they go off the rails or they're a little bit too honest. I think he just threads that line real nicely, where he says what's on his mind without going overboard, and I really like that. Genuine, and like Harbaugh said, he's a consummate Raven, or a definition of what a Ravens player is. The city loves him. Yeah, if he makes plays, I'm sure the city loves him. I like him. I don't know about love. That's a little steep. The L word, really? We're gonna go there. Trying to think what else. Anything else to see? No, man. Well, I'm just happy with the signing. I think the Ravens aren't a better team, but if the Ravens didn't re-sign him, they would be a worse team. So I think they just stay the course, with the new offense. I bet Nick Boyle he's gonna get a touchdown in the first game. I think since he signed the contract, Lamar's gonna try to get him the ball. They're gonna try to scheme him up down in the red zone so that he gets his first touchdown. But with that being said, I think that's going to do it. How about that? I didn't even pause it once. One take. You could probably tell because I'm stammering through this, but just common knowledge off the top of my head, talking Nick Boyle, talking Ravens. I'm here craving some Raven here. Yeah, so that's going to do it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can send me an email. Hit me up on that Gmail at csrpod@gmail.com. That's spelled csrpod@gmail.com. Also, if you really want to support the show, you really just like me in general. You love what I say here. All 5 of you. You can subscribe to my Patreon page at CSR Pod. That's CSRPOD, spelled the same as my email. That's subscription. You know how Patreon works. You're using a podcast, so you're obviously not 80 years old. What? What's Patreon? I don't know nothing about no Patreon. Back in my day, $5 a month got you more than just a podcast. No, it does. Grandpa, it gets you more than a podcast. You get a shout out. If you are a Patreon, you'll get a shout out every episode. Or if you don't want to subscribe in that sort of way, you can just send me money on Venmo. That's even easier. Because I want to get a mic, And that's also at CSR Pod. So I'm just making it easy for you. So now there's just no excuse. So when you don't donate, it's no bueno. I also just want to mention, I got over 100 downloads now, baby. Over 100. That's like 7 an episode, man. And for like what? Doing nothing? Doing what I would normally be doing? Except just keeping these thoughts in my head because there's no Ravens fans for me to talk to in Albuquerque? Awesome. Other than that, yeah, subscribe, like, comment, rate, do all that fun stuff. Or don't. I'll go fuck myself. That's going to do it. Have a good day. Love yourself. Stay in school. Don't do drugs. Or do drugs and don't go to school. That's, the pendulum. It swings. Yeah. Have a good day. Go Ravens.